There are shocking revelations tonight. According to a new report, the American Psychological Association post 9/11 secretly met with the Bush administration to help justify enhanced interrogation, aka torture. Their involvement important because it allowed the Justice Department to argue the program was legal and did not constitute torture, since the interrogations were being monitored to ensure safety. Joining us now on the anchor desk, psychologist Terry Lyles. Terry, welcome to Newsmax Prime.
Thank you.
Where do you come down on this? Enhanced interrogation vis-a-vis torture?
Yeah, it's interesting. When I first saw this story, I think all of us had some opinion about it, but I don't think it's that unusual to use experts on the outside to try to find out where that line is between interrogation and what was considered torture. And now looking back at it, I'm sure people would say, well, maybe we shouldn't have done that. But I don't think it's out of the ordinary that that kind of thing is used to make sure that you don't go too far, that it does become torture.
But the whole notion, correct me if I'm wrong, it is to elicit responses by introducing a form of psychological stress, is it not?
That's correct. And stress, again, is not a bad thing. That's my specialty is stress. So there's levels and lines to where stress becomes good and bad. And you're right, the object is to put someone under pressure, duress, or stress to try to ascertain some information, intelligence, in this case, some partial truth that could be utilized as intelligence. I think looking back, you look at it and say, how good does that really do for someone as an individual receiving that, and how effective is the intelligence after it's received? And that's the question I think that also comes forward now.
And it's the question we want to pose to our guests on our panel. Joining us now from Newsmax, New York, Newsday columnist Ellis Henican, and from Orange County, California, where she's Skyping in, Megan Barth. Megan is also the founder of ReaganBaby.com. Megan, ladies first. We just heard what Terry had to say. Do you agree with his assessment?
Yeah, absolutely, because I think a level of protection was actually a wise and caring thing to do, to bring in psychologists to ensure that the techniques were in accordance with some safety standards that were established for enhanced interrogation techniques. Who else to look for but to professionals within the APA to conduct this oversight? And I thought it was a wise move on the Bush administration to connect with the APA and have this program established.
Ellis, your take on this report and what happened post 9/11?
Those people ought to be drummed out of the psychological profession. It's an abomination that professionals would use their skills and reputation in such a way. JD, the entire concept of human psychology is to help people, help the people that you are treating, not to engage with government officials in order to harm them. And stress, my goodness, JD, stress is barely the beginning of it. We're talking about excruciating, life-threatening, horrible human pain. There is no excuse for that, and I certainly hope that the association is going to denounce it fervently.
Pardon me, but psychological stress also includes sleep deprivation and playing loud music. Now, is that the torturous kind of situation that Ellis is portraying here?
Well, again, there's perceptions and reality. And, I think looking back, I think all of us would probably say, should the APA been involved in this? Should there have been another organization, however that works? But we know the world is a tricky place. I spent 3 months at ground zero, debriefing and going through this stuff, and there's no right or wrong way, in the midst of chaos to try to figure something out. I think the slippery slope here when the APA got involved was, what kind of information were they giving to help them get into this process? And I think that's where the embarrassment now is. And I agree. I think in part we're backing up and going, was that a wise thing to come out with?
Ellis said they should be drummed out of the association. Do you agree with that?
I don't know. I'd leave that to others to say, not just because I'm in that lane or that field, but I think, when more of the information comes out and people make a judgment on that and come down on it, I think, we have to do what's responsible post that, now that we know what we know.
Fair enough. 2 minutes remain. Let's go to issue number 2 for the panel. There's a new Time magazine cover. Take a look. The latest cover from Time shows a man running from officers during the riots in Baltimore, but 1968 is crossed out, replaced with 2015 because things happening this week look a whole lot like a half century ago. Ellis, there's been plenty of criticism of leadership in Baltimore. Is it a political failing?
Well, I mean, listen, everything's a political failing. You're the mayor of a city, the people aren't supposed to riot. I mean, it's a provocative magazine cover. It makes a point that seems relevant to me. And yeah, I mean, there's all kind of political things. There's a huge underclass there that can't afford to support itself. That's a political failing. I'll give you 10 others if we had time.
Well, we'll take into account what you had to say right there and now turn to Megan Barth. Megan, how much of this is political? How much of this, a whole lot of money has been invested in the so-called war on poverty and inner city spending, has it not?
Yeah, and I'm glad Ellis actually said that it was a political issue because the Democrats have actually had a stronghold in Baltimore for 150 years. And not since 1967 has a Republican been mayor of Baltimore. So we are spending on average $15,500 per pupil in Baltimore to educate them. New York is only leading them by $5,000. They spend $20,000. So, you know, we have to really look at the political system in Baltimore, and we have to look at the policies that came out of the Great Society and say, are we really creating a great society? No, we are not. There calls for change. Only the people in Baltimore are going to be able to change their political environment, and that is to stop electing Democrats who believe that a government check is their way to prosperity.
Fair enough. Megan Barth, we'll have to leave it there. Terry Lyles, our thanks. Next time we'll do a psychological profile of partisanship in panel discussions. Also, thanks to our good friend Ellis Henican from Newsmax New York. Don't go away. There's more ahead as Newsmax Prime continues.